Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, the search for meaning. We as a society only preserve what we value, and that preservation rarely reflects the lower of us. Only the rich and the pretty and the beautiful of us have their dreams survive them from generation to generation. So what we memorialize moving forward from the past has a devastating effect on who and what we believed we were in the landscape of antiquity. More narrowly, what we choose to cherish and to personally mementoize is telling as to the core of us. We may save a souvenir baseball from a ball game. We may save our mother's diary because it has sentimental value to us after her death. But that diary has no prosaic worth in the marketplace. We want to be attached to something. We root for sports teams and for political causes, and we wear our alumni identities on our shirts and social graces to demonstrate we are not alone. We were at one time part of something greater than just ourselves. When we collect things as a hobby or as a hoarder, we are giving our life purpose and definition beyond the self, to organize the world through the viewport of a coin collection, or dolls, or the souls of the dead. We are leaving behind breadcrumbs as to who we are and how we wish to be remembered. The ubiquitous role of celebrity in our society is also great and an agent of false binding. We believe we are important, and we attach ourselves to sales figures and streaming events, and we stand at live concerts. For what reason? Do we do this to show our love and support for a talent greater than our own? Are we attempting to scrape some of the sheen of that greatness onto ourselves? What do we receive from idolizing others, other than a feeling of desperation and separation anxiety when we ultimately realize the dedication and the love is not reciprocal? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they all wrote about the unexamined life. Know who you are, where you came from, and how you fit into the world. The wisdom of knowing and all that. Okay then. But what about the perils of the examined life? Can you handle the results of your inquiry? And what if you find your examination is full of regret and sorrows and failures? Is it sometimes better to protect the you of you and not know how you stack up or survive in the reciprocal spotlight of folklore and competition? Does blissful ignorance have value? Some may argue the military has always relied upon blissful ignorance in its teen-aged recruits the world over, because those teenagers have no idea they are mortal and penetrable, and that they are there to be served up as cannon fodder for the enemy. Those who are self-aware and wise and examined and streetwise would never willingly sign up to volunteer for the end of their lives on principle alone, or a dare, or a veiled threat. We all know and struggle with this idea on some deep level that there has to be more to us than just birth and the grave. What is the substance of that in-between thing, sitting between first light and final cloaking? Many of us tend to become collectors of things and people and purposes in the interlingua lives of us all. We then give meaning to these things based on a timeline and perpetuity. We define ourselves in deeds and marks against the past, and never on what we fail to accomplish or deny or betray in the future. But those acts do not define meaning. And that creates a problem for us, because we are in the middle of all of this collecting and recollecting and applying function to purpose, and many of us fail in the ongoing analysis because we are too connected to perception and functional bliss and to the facade that we are able to influence the world beyond our own condescensions. Buddhists prefer to flow and to let things flow through us, detach, make no connection to physical things or possessions. And there is some great wisdom in that philosophy, that to control yourself and your own happiness, you must first give up the physical cherubs surrounding us and allow yourself to own nothing and to control nothing. And then you are truly a free and thoroughly realized human being. But in everyday practice, in a modern world, that Buddhist philosophy may not always be practical, because we are born to compare and to compete with each other, and because the society we have built requires work and buying stuff and managing services in order to survive, and so we become lost. Sure, we can disconnect and meditate on nothingness, but that doesn't do a lot of good for those of us who build things and who put energy back into the world. And so we are now back around to the idea of meaning and why we decide what makes things important to us. Meaning is more emotional than intellectual, more soluble than wise. We give meaning to animate the inanimate. We don't adhere meaning to people or pets or plants. No, we apply meaning to things. Things that have no previous direct ties to us. And then we bind those things to us, using labels and mimetics and pronouns and possessives. When an intangible is provided, through a compliment, a thought, a song, we try to attach meaning to the blissful underdefined, because that is how we actively try to sculpt our world, through choice-making and values modification. But there is danger in meaning, because it varies so much between people. You may find meaning in a religious totem you wear around your neck, while I may find meaning in wearing a feather in my hair. Are we both right, or are we both wrong in the subscription of meaning and value? We both can't be right, right? We can't have multiple meanings without some sort of conflict in value judgment on what is actually of value beyond the narrow lives of us. Otherwise, everything has meaning and value, and that in turn means nothing, and is nothing, and was nothing. When meaning expands exponentially to the madding crowd, and the mimetic compartmentalizes, we begin to sense the subtle variations in definition. Group meaning, cultural identity, and the settings of belonging come into greater focus. Your religious necklace means something, perhaps not to me or my similarly minded connections, but it means something to those you meet with and worship in a church or on the street. The feather in my hair has a similar, larger, shared meaning as a cultural touchstone of the punished and the denied. And we may think a feather is more meaningful and is inscribed with more inherent value than, say, someone who finds meaning in the collection of rocks. And that's the problem with living together and apart. We all mean different things to each other in the possessions we covet. We are looking for signs and icons everywhere for confirmation that we're on the right track. We're happy, we're moral, we are dutiful and joyful. But are we tricking ourselves by not only building the kaleidoscope, but also viewing the world through it too? We always hope to be abiding and kind to each other and to accept what others mean, even though we may disagree. But wars and terrorism and the public square are all filled with those other than us, those others who find value in one meaning over another. And in that dangerous scheme of prioritized collecting of definitions, we reveal the true in us, for we recognize not ourselves in others, but merely ourselves in ourselves. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.